Yeah. That way.
All right, well, let's come back together. I'm really excited to announce our next speaker. We've been trying to get him to speak here for 4 years, and we finally nailed it this year. When I came to Northern Virginia over a decade ago, the joke that I had with my wife was, man, I spend more time with Larry than I do with you. Because, you see, he used to do a show early in the morning, like he does now, O'Connor and Company. She listens to it every Monday through Friday, 5 to 9. And then he used to do a show right when he got off work at 5 o'clock. So it was like, Larry in the morning, Larry in the afternoon. So anyway, all I can say is you're going to really enjoy our next speaker. I'm so happy that now there's a couple ladies with him in the morning. He keeps them in check, but they're not here today. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Larry O'Connor.
How's your wife about that now? Garrett? Sorry. Hi, it's great to see you. Well, it's true. I've been lucky enough to be invited to this event for many years, but I was always traveling the weekend that this happens. I don't know if you know this, I'm so happy to be here. It's very rare that I get to speak for 10 minutes without stopping and giving it to Jamie Whitten, the Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. I'm just going to keep going and going and going. There's no traffic breaks. This is fantastic. I moved here about 14 years ago, and at the time I still have 4 children, but at the time I had 4 children. They were the ages 5 to 12. Very difficult thing to do. We made a decision as a family that they would stay with their mother in Southern California. I would move here, and I would go back to California at least every 4 to 6 weeks. A lot of you don't know that, but I would get off the air on Friday morning, I'd head to the airport, I'd fly to LA, spend Friday evening, all day Saturday, and then fly right back Sunday morning so I could be here Monday. But it was important for me to be involved in their lives and help raise them. And actually right up until that point, that year that I moved here, we were homeschooling our kids. I want to tell you about my kids real fast because this is about our kids, all of our kids, because I feel like I represent the success story of school choice. My oldest child, again, homeschooled all 4 of our children up until the point that my oldest child was in 8th grade. Then our oldest 3 went to a parochial Catholic school. After 8th grade, my oldest child went to a charter school in Los Angeles County for the performing arts because she loved the theater. She then went to UCLA, got a theater major. She's now at Yale Drama School for her master's degree. All right? I know it wasn't my choice, but we'll work that out. Graduate school's different out there. My second child ended up leaving, going to high school at an all-girls Catholic school in Southern California. Got accepted to the Naval Academy. She then graduated, went to the 1-year nuclear power program in Charleston, so she's like 6 credits away from being a nuclear engineer. She's an officer on a submarine. She married her classmate from the Naval Academy, who's now an artillery officer in the Marine Corps, and they're expecting my first grandchild. Big way to get applause. My son, my 3rd child, just went to a good old-fashioned, after homeschooling, in 3rd grade. He ended up just going to a good old-fashioned vanilla public school system, graduated as the valedictorian of this high school, and he's now in his 3rd year at UC San Diego. He'd love to be a computer science major, but he was told that because he's half white, half Chinese American, he's not allowed to be in the, they didn't have room for him in the program. If only he had come from China. I'm completely serious. They said we have slots still, but only for actually Chinese-born, imported Chinese students, because that's Gavin Newsom's California now. And then our youngest child, who is on the autism spectrum, because of his special needs, we had him in the public school for 1 year, realized exactly what the state of California special needs program was like, pulled him right back out, and we homeschooled right up through his graduation from high school last year. So That's quite a sampling, isn't it? From parochial schools to charter performing arts schools to basic public schools to homeschooling, all 4 of my kids. And the reason I say that in terms of the microcosm of my family and my children is that, believe it or not, every child is different.
Amen.
Every single child is created out of God's eye to be their own individual person. These 4 kids had the exact same parents, had the exact same faith, had the exact same method of learning how to potty train and read, and yet they all ended up going in uniquely different positions. That's why we need school choice. Because right now, the people who are in charge of education in the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, use a cookie cutter approach for all of our children. And that cookie doesn't taste very good, let's face it. I loved our panelist here who said, I went to Fairfax High School before it sucked. Paraphrasing. But you know, if we were in Maryland today, they'd say, oh yeah, I went to Bethesda Chevy Chase before it sucked. If we were in DC, they'd say, oh yeah, I went to Woodrow Wilson before it sucked. It's amazing how all these great institutions over the course of the last 15 to 20 years now suddenly suck. And I guess we know what they mean when they say equity, because that's what equity looks like. I know they sell you on the idea that it's going to lift everybody up and everyone will have achievement and everyone will be, no. Equity works the other direction too. And frankly, that's a lot easier, isn't it? Whenever we decry DEI programs, I think we're always accused of in some way opposing diversity. We don't oppose diversity. Diversity is fabulous. Look at this room. Look around you right now. We love diversity. The problem is the equity part. The problem is when they drag down standards, when they drag down excellence, they don't even try to achieve excellence, because if certain students excel, well, where's the equity in that? And that's what we're living through right now. So how did we get here, and how do we promote school choice so that we can actually fix the problem and change that E in DEI from equity to excellence? Well, the reason we got here is because of political power. Make no mistake. I would love for our education system in America not to be a political issue. Good luck. As long as the government is paying for it, and as long as people can get elected into office with money from very, very rich interests in our education systems, it's going to be political. So let's not kid ourselves, and let's not try to not be political about the education of our children, because it is. But the good thing about politics is you can win, and you can defeat your political opponents. I just saw a poll, Harvard-Harris poll, and the question was very simple. Do you think teachers' unions should be involved in politics, or do you want teachers' unions to not be involved in politics? Do you know what the number was? I know you know what the majority of Americans said, right? They do not want the teachers' unions involved in politics. It was an astounding 60%. We can't get 60% of Americans right now to agree that chocolate ice cream is pretty damn yummy. Right? I keep hearing how divided our country is, and how we can't come together. How about that? How about 60% of Americans want teachers' unions to not be political? Do you think the teachers' unions will follow that advice?
No.
Absolutely not. Why not? Well, because right now the politicians who gain power because of those teachers' unions, they don't see any negative ramifications from their association with that group. You know, there was a time in my lifetime where members of Congress, members of the state legislature down in Richmond, they would proudly say, you betcha I take money from the tobacco companies. What's wrong with that? Do you see that anymore from any politicians? Again, this isn't a knock on tobacco companies, but something happened where the American people associated that political money and that political influence with something quite negative in our lives. As far as I'm concerned, the cancer that is caused by cigarettes is not nearly as damaging as the cancer that the teachers' unions and big money that continue these programs that are harming our children. You ask yourselves, would you rather find out when your kid comes home from school that they had cigarettes behind the gym, or that they learned that they could be the other gender? You answer that question, and then you know exactly what we need to do. We need associations with that kind of political money to be just as toxic as tobacco money was. And how do we do that? Well, this is how we start, and this is how we continue. We need to continue to not only elevate and recognize the excellence that can be had out there with alternative educational options, but we need to publicly shame the people that continue to hang on to the failed programs of the past. They can't look at excellence. They can't say, hey, everything's great now. So what they do is just take the money and pretend that you're not paying attention. And we voters, we moms, we dads, you know, after the pandemic, we had a choice. We could either really get involved and get in the face of all of these people who have ruined the schools for our kids and make that difference. Or we could just make sure that our kids are taken care of and let everything else go to hell. We tried the former, I think, for a little while. I can tell you at my radio station, you know, you're either a local radio host or you're a national radio host, right? And when you're a national radio host, you focus on, you know, the same things that you see on Fox News every night, I suppose, all the big national issues. I'm a local radio host in a really big market that gets a lot of attention. And we made a concerted effort and a very conscious choice that if we're gonna be local, we're gonna be local. I probably spent more time on school board issues and school board elections as I have on congressional elections. Frankly, as I always like to say, what happens in your house is more important than what happens in the White House. I think we saw during the COVID pandemic that your local school board member has more of an impact every single day on your life and on your children's life than who sits behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office. And yet, how much time do we spend in the media and in our politics and even on our own Facebook pages talking about the president instead of about who's on the school board? See, that's on us. And we need to raise those issues up, and we need to try to make a difference. And here's the funny thing. Little local radio show that starts talking about school board issues, suddenly that becomes a national issue. There's only a few counties in America that everyone has heard of and knows about. Loudoun and Fairfax are two of them. Nationwide, in fact, internationally. For all the wrong reasons. But we've elevated those stories because they're a microcosm of every single county in this country. You are not alone. We are not alone. It's going on everywhere, and we just need to reach critical mass. And I'll say one more thing before we're done. There are a lot of voters out there and a lot of people in Virginia that I speak with, either like this or on the radio. And they'll say, listen, my kids are out of school. It's not my problem anymore. Or I homeschool my kids. It's not my problem anymore. Or my kids go to a private school. It's not my problem anymore. Well, I just told you my educational journey with my kids, all right? So whatever option you fall in line with, that's why school choice is important, because the politicians in Richmond, they're so arrogant. The politicians in whatever county you're in Northern Virginia, they're so arrogant that they think, you know what? When the voters don't like the school system, they'll just take care of it themselves. They'll pull their kids out, they'll homeschool, they'll put their kids in private school, so, you know, we don't have to worry about it. But of course, you're still paying for those schools. And they know that. And so they don't care to fix the problem for you. Let me just say, if you homeschooled your child, if you put your kids in private school, or if you don't have kids in the school system anymore, the kids that are in those schools right now, well, number one, they're going to influence your kids because they're still going to see them on the block, on the streets, in clubs, on teams, etc. So don't think that how you're raising your kid is not affected by the choices that other parents and other teachers are making, because they are. Number two, those kids that come out of our public schools, well, they're voting, and your politicians know that. It's why, cynically speaking, you could look at the entire system that's been set up, and you would think that those people that are in power want kids that come out of the public schools to just be dumb and angry at America, because that's what they're doing. And then how do those people generally vote? And then number three, those kids that are coming out of the public schools are also the kids that you'll be hiring for your businesses, or that will be working behind the counter when you're standing in line trying to get a coffee or trying to buy something at Target. And you know what, quality of life wise, I want those kids to be better. than what's coming out of our school system right now, don't you? And so it matters, and it's your responsibility, it's our responsibility. In fact, if your kids are no longer in the system, frankly, that means that it's even more incumbent on you to give other kids the choice and the opportunity that your kids have. And that's the other arrogant thing that these politicians all know for a fact in their hearts, that as far as they're concerned, those people that can take their kids out of the system and are blessed like I was to be able to make those choices, well, that's fine for them, but let's keep everybody else down. That's what school choice is all about. And the only argument they've got back to you is, well, that's going to make all of the public schools poor because you'll pull all the money out of it, which is an admission of their own failure. Because they know the second that there's competition for those tax dollars, they will lose that competition. And you show me one product and one service in this country that has ever gotten better without competition. And on that, I will answer your questions if you have any. Otherwise, we'll just move on. We're moving on, all right. I will answer your questions later if you have any for me. But Stephen has given me the hook. Okay, now time for the Hippie Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. Good night,
I will say this. I ran for school board years ago. I was listening to radio as you're going from point A to point B. And there would be people complaining all the time, like, hey, I can't get in touch with this candidate to get a yard sign. I can't get in touch with this candidate to get whatever. And here's the thing, when you run, you always want to be on radio, right? So you're like, oh man, like I want to get on that radio show. So as they're talking about different candidates who are friends of mine in, overall in Fairfax County, I'm texting via Twitter to Larry to say, hey, that person called in, I know that candidate, you know, we're running the same race. Send them to me, I'll make sure they get a so-and-so yard sign. And I'm hearing on the radio, because, you know, I was doing it while I stopped at a red light. I'm not supposed to do that. But I hear on the radio, Stephen Mosley said he'll get that for you, so I'm gonna get that contact over to you, and it was for a whole different candidate, because bottom line is this, folks, we are all in this together, the school choice journey. And it's not about any one of us or any one child. It's about the community and what we can do together. I want to introduce to you our last speaker today. And I am so thankful for this woman. Amen. I will say a couple of years ago, I was at a polling place and had fluttered with hundreds of signs who were running for lieutenant governor. And it was so many signs, you're like, I don't even know what's going on. And then I see this one sign. You know the sign. It's this one sign for this one candidate, and it's only one sign. And it was a sign of our next speaker. One of the most passionate, fearless leaders of the school choice movement. Please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears.
It's so good to see your bright, shining, smiling faces. No, seriously, it is. And I'm glad to be here with you. Folks, we have got a time or two coming to us, don't we? And we've got to be strong, and we've got to be resilient, because we don't give up. That's not what we do. To give up is to give up on our future, and we're here for the children. You know, I'm asking myself, what could we really say that we haven't already said about the ability of a parent to be able to choose whatever educational type that they want for their children? Exactly. It's all been said. And yet we don't have that ability. Well, folks, you know, when I filed an amicus brief as Lieutenant Governor of our great Commonwealth, I filed it in support of Asian children who were at the Supreme Court to ensure that they had the same opportunities to get into institutions of higher learning as anybody else. And, you know, we can't keep playing this racism game. You know, we're all sick of it. We want equal opportunity for our children. And for that, I was called names. But you know, I'm used to being called names, so what's one more? And it's probably the same name I keep being called anyway. So we have to keep fighting. I'm trying to look at this from the point of an 18-year-old who's recently graduated and wished that he or she had different options. And just the fact that I said he or she, you know, is an issue too. I mean, what is not an issue anymore? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. The problem is, for those at 17 or 18-year-olds who've recently graduated, the options are gone. If they hadn't been able to have different choices in education, the years cannot be retrieved. And so this is the turn of events that really haunts me, because we don't get do-overs in life. You can't go back. And I believe that despite your income level, you should be able to choose. Despite your zip code, you should be able to choose. Why not? I mean, there are so many people who say, well, you know, this is racism again. It's, you know, it's, there we go. It's all racism. Well, I would say that if you're stuck with your zip code, that it's what? Redlining. That's what it is. That's racism for those folks who really care. So I think that when we look at the school choice issue, when we think about it in terms of Social Security and retirement, would you like that to be your only option for retirement, Social Security? And yeah, we just discovered it's not the lockbox that somebody had said so many years ago. For those of us who are a little bit older, remember lockbox? Yeah. No. I mean, we want options. Those same people would say, no, you shouldn't have options when it comes to your future, which is education. I'm thinking about one of their major obstacles, they always say, is, you heard the refrain, government money shouldn't be funding private institutions. And then when we examine that, we realize, but that happens every single day. I mean, when you talk about SNAP benefits, food benefits, isn't that public money that goes to private grocery stores? I mean, this is not New York, so Mandami doesn't have those. And then when we talk about Section 8, isn't that public money that goes to private landlords? I mean, really, who are we fooling? And then when we talk about Medicaid and Medicare, isn't that public money that goes to private hospitals, private doctors, private clinics? And then when we talk about childcare, preschool, isn't that public money that goes to these institutions? And then when we talk about higher ed, how many of you wonderful folks have ever had to fill out a FAFSA form? Yes, raise my hand. Isn't that public money that goes to private institutions as well as public? You see the nonsense, the games that we play. I mean, what the government says is take this money in each of the cases that I've given you, and they say to these folks, take it to whoever doctor will take it to whatever child care center will take it to whatever high school, or not high school, but higher ed will take it to any landlord who will take it. But when it comes to the foundational aspect of our children's lives, K through 12, we say no. Your only option is the public school option, unless, my friends, you can afford different. Why is that? Why indeed is that? I mean, when you look at the law in Virginia, the code says that a child must have minimum 13,000 hours of instruction in order to graduate from the public schools. And so you would think that if any government is going to have this much access to my child, 13,000 hours, that I ought to have a say in how this all works, don't you think? Of course, but of course you don't. Makes no sense to me. I remember a long time ago when I used to work for the Chamber of Commerce in Hampton Roads, and I was hired to handle their education programs. And I remember saying to my boss at the time, this is so not political. Ah. She said, Winston, you're in the most political portion of our business ever. Education is political. So many people I've heard say, you know, I don't want to be involved in politics. I'm not really interested. Except that politics is interested in you. And you're as involved as ever. And so if we don't wake up and get a grip and realize that we are the government, we are the government. We've got to start doing some things. I heard about some spending that's been going on. I'm looking at, let's just take two. Alexandria. Alexandria City Public Schools, it says, spends approximately $19,955,000 per student annually. It says as of fiscal year 2024, the district spent specifically $16,000 plus on instructional costs, and the rest, of course, is overhead. We're talking about $378 million plus. That's more than the GDP of some countries. We look here and we see that for Arlington, should I bring my, Arlington, it's about 25,000, since we're in Arlington, about 25,000 per student. That's a lot of money. And we're not asking for a full funding. I mean, I think one of the bills that we had last year when we were in office, just $6,000. Can we just get $6,000? And we were going to fund it. Let me tell you something else. When our governor was Youngkin, you know, he had $50 million that we were thinking if we could just get it to, I think it was 300% poverty level. And it would help those students who really, really needed it the most. If we could start there, just a pilot project to see how it would work. It wasn't going to take money from the schools, because I remember the governor, because you know, some of you know that since my time in office, every year I was there fighting for school choice, every single year. And again, got called names, but you know, we should have had a drinking party for everything. And then last year, the governor came to me and said, Winston, let me try. Have at it, go. And that's when he put in for the education opportunity scholarships. And I'm not saying anything out of turn that the governor hasn't already said. But he came to me and he said it publicly too. The Speaker of the House, who is still the current Speaker of the House, said, we're not going to pass it under you. It's a good thing, but we're not going to pass it under you. I don't think they passed it this year, have they? No. No. This is the kind of games that politicians are playing with our future. And I call our children our future. We cannot afford this. So, what are you going to do? What are you going to do indeed? I think about the question of education opportunity. We're talking about, why can't we have it? And all of the above approach. Why is it the one size? Why can't we have public school, private school, hybrid school, homeschool, whatever it is? Why can't we have that? Unless you have the funds, the income, you can't. You can't. You know, I was visiting a school when I was a lieutenant governor in DC. And it was a charter school. You know, they have 100+ charter schools in that great bastion of republicanism known as DC. They're all Democrats, and yet they have 100+ charter schools. When I was first elected, my very first time in 2001, I put in a bill to increase charter schools. 3 things my bill said when I was elected to the House of Delegates, and it was, number 1, that charter schools are public schools. See, they were so new that nobody really understood, you know, no, they're public schools. And then another one was that you couldn't just deny a charter school application, just a no, because that's what used to happen. No, now you had to say exactly why you were denying this application.
Good.
And then number 3, that institutions of higher learning could also themselves have charter schools, because that wasn't plain then either. And at the time, there were 5 charter schools when the bill was passed in 2002. 20+ years later, ladies and gentlemen, we have a grand total of 7 charter schools in Virginia. Progress. Gotta love it. And why is that? Why is that indeed? And then when I was on the Board of Education, and I was vice president, we had where the law said, because Republicans passed this law, that if you were denied by your local school division the opportunity to have a charter school, you could come and appeal to the Board of Education, the State Board of Education. Well, as soon as Democrats took power, you know what they did. They got rid of that. But my time, we were able to at least push one through. Folks, something's got to give. We in this room know this. But as you know, this is America, and we run by the numbers. We run by the majority. We've got to change minds. That means wherever there is an audience, we ought to be there. What do I mean? Well, we've got to start putting some money to this. I'm talking about radio ads. I'm talking about getting on streaming. I'm talking about, even if we don't have the money, at least we should be before every school board meeting, whenever it's held, talking about this. Even if it's not on the agenda, that's our agenda today. We should be. Why aren't we? If there's a school board meeting, we're there. Every time the State Board of Education meets, there ought to be folks signed up to talk about school choice. Every single, they ought to be saying, oh, here come the school choice people again. That's when you know you're making a difference, because they see you coming. Wherever any industry, for example, if there's a booth to be bought, we ought to be there. I don't care if it's the pool industry. They're having a fair take. We're getting a table. You see what I mean? We just heard about Virginia Housing had some booth fair type thing today. And we should have been there. We should have a booth. Yeah, but they're talking about housing. Yes, we should be there. Don't care what they're talking about. We should have a booth on education. Why? Because they're eyeballs, and because they're not in our meetings like this. They're not here. We're the insiders. We're trying to change minds, and then they'll be able to see us and touch us and understand. This isn't about racism. This is about the education of our children. I'm thinking about one of our heroes. When he was an enslaved young man, Frederick Douglass, he said that when his owner understood that his wife was teaching him as an 8-year-old how to read and write, the husband said, "You cannot do that. Because once he learns how to read and write, he will be useless as a slave." Folks, that's what this is about. Education is the rung. And we are the child, parents are the child's first teachers. Now, I know that we have a law that states that. And the fact that we have to have a law to remind those people down in Richmond, these are our children. They're always our children. We are their first teachers. We need to be able to make that decision on where to send our children to school. And we're already doing that. As a matter of fact, in some places, because you know that if your child is a special needs child and they cannot get the type of education here in Virginia, the law says we must find it somehow. And I can tell you that now we are paying for students to go out of state in Virginia, over $10,000 plus more, to be educated by another state because the services aren't available here. So you see, this is not some racism thing again that we're talking about. This is real world, real life. And then as I consider what's happening on the international scale, because you know we have wars and rumors of even more wars. So how are we doing internationally? That's a very good question. Who asked that? No, I didn't. I'm looking at, you should already know this because I know you're all well informed. It's called a PISA test, the Program for International Student Assessment. And as you know, it tests children all around the world, 15-year-olds, in 3 categories: reading, science, and math. And the last tests were 2022, released December of 23, showing, and I'm going to quote here, United States 15-year-olds ranked, where do you think in reading?
30.
Not yet. Sixth in reading. But we're the #1 superpower, right? We ranked in science 10th place.
I was on the fence about 5.
And in math, we ranked number 26. Yeah. That's where we are. For all the money. And by the way, you just heard how much money we're spending per pupil. This is not good results, and this is just Virginia. In some places, it's even more. They're getting less for their money. And so it tells us that U.S. math scores dropped to their lowest point ever in the history of this test. So if COVID, and you heard Larry O'Connor talk about COVID, COVID taught us anything, it was that our children weren't learning what we thought. Even those in the suburbs, so-called, who thought their children were learning, they understood. They're not. They weren't. And where was the learning loss felt? Because you know the public schools were shut down, according to our illustrious previous governor. And yet, the private schools were open. The private schools were learning. And when I looked at a recent chart of where the learning loss, private schools, fabulous. Parochial schools, fabulous. Yes, doing well. And it was our children. I remember a teacher, no, the principal of an inner city middle school said to me, "Lieutenant Governor, the kids normally come to us already behind. As a result of the schools being closed, they are now 3 years behind. What am I supposed to do?" And so that's why Governor Youngkin put in the budget, you remember, for tutoring. And the Democrats fought us. We got them through. And then we had another bill that I was able to break the tie on for education so that we could have lab schools. And it was $100 million to give our kids different opportunities. It was still public, but a little bit more opportunity. And my God, they voted against that too, till I broke the tie, $100 million, and then magically, somebody discovered there was a $50 million discrepancy, and guess where they got the $50 million from? That $100 million. And coming back to the opportunity scholarships that you wanted, gone too. So, here's what I say we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to again be where everybody has eyeballs. Let them throw us out. You heard Larry O'Connor talk about that some of us, our kids are grown and gone, as mine are. But we can't leave the battlefield. We cannot leave. If we leave, then who's gonna be the advocate? Who's gonna be the advocate for our children? When they're gonna ask us, what did you do? What did you do to help me? We've got to be there. We've got to, again, convince others. We must never, ever give up fighting. We can't. We may not see it for our children even before they graduate, but then we don't do things just for ours. As we used to say, our for and no more. No, we do it because it's the right thing, because it's for our posterity and for their posterity. They've got to have a hope in the future. And if America is going to remain the #1 superpower, their kids have to have a good education. So, let's get it done. All of the above, public, private, parochial, hybrid, everything. You've seen that the Democrats are determined to set. This is the second year in a row that they've come with a bill to get rid of homeschooling. It's going to pass if we don't get our act together. They're just biding their time. Thank you all, and thank you so much for caring.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Winston Sears. We've had a great afternoon. I just want to put your attention on a couple of things. You should have got this when you came in. It's a little bit more about us here at Ed Reform, Virginia. We have a Ed Reform news VA. EdNewsVA.org is where you can get daily, up-to-date information about what's going on in K-12 education. We also send out a weekly email, so if you're like, hey, how can I get this information every week? So glad you asked. It's right there. Please scan the QR code, get on our email, and you say, well, Stephen, how can I support this great organization? You can support us at edreformva.org, edreformva.org. Well, for myself and our Executive Director, Nathan Brinkman, we're going to say thank you so much for coming today. Please go ahead.
Please mention the Vote No campaign for the Vote for 21st.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we have elections that are coming up. Obviously, the April election deals with the redistricting amendment. So please make sure you're aware and educate on that. As 501c3, we don't endorse either way on that. But if you want to know my personal opinion, I'll be back there. So we can chat. So we want to say thanks so much to Ed Reform Virginia. Please check out all of the tables. Lieutenant Governor Sears has a table back there. Our educator panel had a table back there. We would love to chat with you more, grab some more food. Hope you guys have a great day.
Hi.
Great, thank you. Yeah, of course. There you go. Thank you. You guys all right? Yeah, we, yeah, I got you. Awesome. Yeah, we've got a nice, yeah. We got a nice demo inside my wife's car now. It's all scraped up, so.